Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I got a question from someone who's been a big supporter of Simple Programmer. Appreciate it. His name is Dave. I'm not going to give his last name because I want to keep this somewhat anonymous. But essentially, Dave sent me this question asking, really in desperation, of what he should do. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to give you some highlights of it. Basically, Dave is 50 years old. He's got a high school education. He's trying to teach himself data science. And he's reaching out to me, please, please, please. He wants me to do a video on this. And he says that he's a self-starter, highly motivated, dedicated, and willing to study each night and many hours on the weekend. But he has a lot of things against him. His age, lack of degree, 45 hours a week working as a shipping clerk. He's exhausted from work, wife, children, grandchildren, and he's just feeling overwhelmed and second thoughts about pursuing his big data dream. And basically he wants to know, is it worth spending the next 15 years of his life, spending 40 hours per week of his free time trying to learn data science, or am I just too old, uneducated to even try? So here's the thing. I think, you know, I want to talk about, first of all, why we get overwhelmed. Okay, let's step back a little bit. Let me give you a playlist I have on age as a programmer. You can learn, trust me, like let's address this first of all. It doesn't matter if you're 50 or 40 or 30, right? Because people have asked me at all different ages. Go check out that playlist and you can certainly learn. At 50, you could certainly learn data science. There's no reason why not. You know, if you want some inspiration, look for, you know, do a Google search on like when Colonel Sanders started KFC. There's all kinds of things where people started their careers, or what they're known for in life way later in life, way older than 50. You can find that for any age group. But there's no reason why it only takes a few years worth of time really to get started in any kind of field of software development, if you're willing to spend the time and the effort to do that. So you've got a few years, you could definitely do it. I know that it can seem like you don't have enough time or that you got such a late start, but I know plenty of people also that have transitioned into the field much later in their career. So it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible with just a high school education. It does require work. It's going to require work. It's going to require dedication. Now let's talk about the overwhelm. And I want to talk specifically about what causes a person to become overwhelmed or to feel overwhelmed. And mostly it boils down to two things, which really go to one core thing, which is the first thing that causes overwhelm is when you feel like you have to do something, you have some kind of goal, but it's not clearly enough defined, so you don't know exactly what it is you're supposed to do, right? You don't know how to do it because it's not clearly defined enough. So you want to learn data science, but you don't know how much you need to know, or what you need to do, or what that even really entails. So you're sort of lost. You don't have the ability to accomplish what you want to accomplish, or the know-how to do it, and that creates overwhelm. It creates huge overwhelm, right? The second way we get overwhelmed typically is when we don't have the resources to do what we need to do, which could include time. So for example, if I tell you to do something and I don't give you the tools that you need to do it, or I don't give you the time frame, or you're being asked to do something that's unreasonable or impossible for you to do, you're going to feel overwhelmed as well. And if you get both of those going, you're really going to feel overwhelmed. And they really both come down to one core thing that causes us to feel overwhelmed, which is having to do something, or needing to do something, wanting to do something, and not having the ability to do it, not knowing how to do it, not having the resources, not having the time, whatever it is. And so in order to stop feeling overwhelmed, one of the best things to do is to define exactly what you need to do. We need to scope this down smaller. So when you say you want to learn data science, right, or big data, I think, I'm trying to remember, did you say big data or data science? It doesn't really matter because it's big data. So if you want to learn big data, what is it that you want to learn, right? What is the goal? The goal can't be to learn big data because that's too big, right? I talk about this in my 10 Steps to Learn Anything Quickly course you can check out here. But one of the very first things, one of the secrets to learning things quickly is breaking them down and making the scope of what you're going to learn very, very small, or small enough so that you can actually get it in your head and actually feel like you could succeed and actually know what to do. If I want to learn big data, I don't even know. I mean, what kind? Would you want to learn Hadoop? Do you want to learn, whatever else there is? What is the scope of what you need to learn? And the way to figure that is why. Why do you need to learn it? In this case, you might say, well, because I want to get a job doing big data stuff. I love big data stuff. Okay, what kind of job? So what I would recommend that you do, Dave, is simply this. First of all, again, breathe, realize that yes, age is not a matter. You can handle this, right? You can handle this in a couple of years for sure if you're willing to put in the time and effort and hard work, which it sounds like you are. 2, go and look for jobs, data science jobs, basically entry-level ones, jobs that you would be applying for, and figure out what kind of job that you want. Figure out, go through and read a whole bunch of them and figure out, narrow it down. Don't just pick, data science in general. Pick a specific technology, look for jobs in that, look in your market and see where you would actually apply and get those jobs, and pick out, you could have it a little bit bigger. You could have maybe like 2 or 3 roles, but basically pick out a few jobs that you're going to mold yourself to in order to get those jobs, to be able to get those jobs, right? So that'll give you a goal, because then if you look at the job description and you're like, okay, this is what they're doing. They're using this technology and this is what they need to be able to know and need to be able to do. You can look at those responsibilities and you could figure out what it is you need to learn, and it'll give you a goal. It'll give you a place to go, so you can set a roadmap out and you can decide, okay, I need to start here. I need to learn here. I need to go here. And then eventually I'll get to this. And then you need to start applying for those jobs and get rejected so that you can figure out what you don't know and what you're doing wrong. I don't think you're at that stage yet, but you're going to get to that stage, and that's you're going to not wait until you know it all and you can absolutely ace the interview. No, you're going to go out there and you're going to get rejected, and you're going to then ask questions, and you're going to learn, and you're going to figure out, what do I still need to learn? What are my gaps? And you're going to fill in those gaps as you start working on it. The other thing I would say also is, once you figure that out, don't just learn in a vacuum. Start a project, right? I talk about this a lot, but figure out something that you're actually going to use data science for, or big data, I keep calling it data science, big data, to do something, right? Install the technology, use the technology, create a database of DVDs or crunch census data or something. I don't know a whole lot about big data, I'll be honest here, but I'm sure that you'll be able to figure out some kind of project, make a side project, something that's going to actually get you real application, and it's also going to work as a portfolio piece, so you can demonstrate to people, say, look what I did I understand big data. You could see what I did here. You could see what I created here, right? That's the key here. You basically got to plan this out. Come up with a timeline, come up with a plan, come up with a schedule, come up with a good goal and milestones that are going to take you there, and chart it and say, okay, in 2 years, here's my goal. I expect to be here to start applying for jobs. Here's what I need to do along the way. Maybe it's shorter than that. Maybe it's 1 year. Maybe say, okay, if I'm spending so many hours per week, I'm studying this, I know what I'm studying, then I'm going to study this, then I'm going to study that, and this all is part of the job description of this job role that I want to get. That's going to get you to your goal. You got to think very strategically on how you're going to do this and how you're going to plan this out, right? And then maybe part of your plan is that you start looking for internships. Are you looking for companies? Maybe there's a lot of ways to approach this. Maybe you start reaching out to people that are already in big data, and you invite them out for lunch. You take them out for lunch or for dinner, and you ask them some questions about the industry, about the best ways to get started. What would you do if you needed to learn this? How could I shadow you and basically do your job or get your job? Could I spend a few hours a week interning for you or doing some tasks for you, right? Things like that. Think about ways that are going to guarantee that you're going to get your goal. And once you start doing this, right? And I can't give you the exact plan. I'm just giving you some ideas here because I want you to start thinking in this way. Because once you start thinking this way and you actually have a plan, and your plan might be even better than anything that I could come up with, right? But once you figure out what it is and you've got steps and you know what those steps are, you're not going to feel overwhelmed anymore. You're going to feel like, okay, all I got to do is I got to execute, right? This is that whole trusting the process. You can check out the trusting the process playlist here. But it's basically you spend the time, you plan it up front, you come up with the process, and then you trust and follow that process, and then you stick your head up every once in a while and you make adjustments and you say, is this working? Is this not working? Do I need to change the direction of the ship, right? And come up with a new process, and then you do that, and you're eventually going to get there, right? But paint the milestones on the mile markers so you know where you're supposed to go on the road, right? Make sure that you know what is it, what is the milestones that you have to have at a certain point in order to get there, and you will get there. So I know it can be overwhelming. I know it can seem like there's a lot, and there is, but the more that you narrow down the scope, the more that you define clearly what your goal is and what you need to do and the steps that you need to do to get there and spend that time thinking that out, the more you're going to feel like you can actually accomplish it. And you might not get it right the first time. You might have a bad plan, but a bad plan is better than no plan, because once you have a bad plan and you start executing on that bad plan, you start going down that road, you can adjust the plan. You can change it because you're going to have feedback. But when you're sitting and you're overwhelmed and you're like, I just don't know how to do it and I don't know what I'm doing, or what a lot of people do in that situation is they just start reading stuff, or they just start, quote, learning stuff. That's a bad idea. That's just action without direction. You got to have direction first, and then you got to apply action to it. A lot of people make mistakes because they just have direction, or they just have action, and they don't combine the two. But it's important to have both, and to have the direction first and have the action informing the direction. The action causing you to go in the direction that you want to go. You don't have to know it all. You can adjust as you go, but you got to start somewhere and then adjust. So I hope that's helpful to you, Dave, or to anyone else that's struggling with this kind of thing. I know it can be overwhelming trying to learn something, but you gotta figure out your plan, right? You got to start there and try not to get overwhelmed. And the way that you're going to do that is by setting a clear course, a clear set of objectives that you can accomplish. If you like this video, if you want to get more videos like this about job advice, programming, life, psychology, mindset, whatever it is, go ahead and click that subscribe button below, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.